Hello there, and welcome to my channel. Today I watched the film Miller's Girl, and now I want to review it. Just as a heads up, the subject matter of this film is taboo love, and it can be compared to movies like American Beauty. If this sort of thing bothers you, it's best to exit now. The story was written by Jade Haley Bartlett, who also directed the film. It stars Martin Freeman as Mr. Miller, Jenna Ortega as Cairo Sweet, and Bashir Salahuddin as Mr. Fillmore. The story revolves around Cairo Sweet, a teenage girl living alone in Tennessee. She fancies herself a writer and feels trapped in her rural home. Her parents are traveling abroad and left her to fend for herself in their giant mansion. It's a new semester at school, and her friend Winnie advised her to take the English class of Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller is a published author who is struggling in his marriage. He doesn't feel seen by his wife anymore and longs to interact with someone he finds intellectually stimulating. When Cairo appears in his class and makes a big first impression, the two become friends. Mr. Miller takes her under his wing and starts advising her on the art of writing. As the two become closer, a taboo relationship begins and both of them find themselves caught up in it. The cast is extremely small with only 6 named characters and 4 of them are supporting roles that don't get much screen time. 3 of them are staff at the school, but we only see 1 of them in a working capacity. The others we see conversing in their free time. 2 of the characters are students at the school, and again we only see them in their free time, and not as students. The final character is the wife of Mr. Miller. Visually, the film follows the perspectives of Mr. Miller and Cairo Sweet. We see them traverse back and forth between home and school and interact with each other in romantic settings. We also see the 2 of them conversing with their friend groups and contemplating life on their own. The story takes place in a small town with a lot of rich rural housing. Both Mr. Miller and Cairo Sweet live in extravagant mansions, and the school they attend looks like an elite boarding school. Sound-wise, the film uses a few instrumentals and a couple of original pop songs. The instrumentals tend to be a bit more classical, involving lots of stringed instruments and piano pieces, while the original songs are a bit more modern with lots of electronic beats. The music tends to support the mood and atmosphere rather than the emotional journey. Okay, so how was the film? The story reminded me a lot of American Beauty, just without any of the good writing or intrigue. The problem is that nothing interesting happens, and they don't explore the topic in any real nuance or detail. It's just a short, salacious tale about a student trying to seduce her teacher. The characters aren't likable, they speak like pretentious assholes, and there's almost no spark between them. The most interesting part of the film is when they start reading smut aloud to get some shock value, but it's shallow and gets old quickly. The film ends up being quite boring despite the story making perfect sense. The cast is what they can with their roles, and there are some decent moments in the film. That said, everyone is extremely limited by the incredibly wordy dialogue, and there isn't much for them to do beyond bantering with one another. There is also a major problem with the casting. Martin Freeman and Jenna Ortega have zero chemistry. They look like a dad and daughter together, and Freeman seems about as interested in her as he is in getting hemorrhoids. Ortega and Freeman do their best to play out the emotional journeys outside of the romance plot, but the big black mark in the middle is just too hard to ignore. Visually, the film is well shot and filled with beautiful scenery and extravagant locations. Despite that, it's also quite boring. It's just watching 2 rich people go about their days and artistically filming them. There are some interesting angles and some nice colors, but there aren't any big moments. There's no big confrontation, there's no crazy shot of a character contemplating in beautiful scenery, and there isn't even a good romance moment between them. Sound-wise, the film is in a mixed bag. Most of the time, the music comes in properly, adds a bit of mood to the atmosphere, and then it quietly goes away. Sometimes it's too loud and straight up conflicts with the dialogue. At others, it's too quiet and doesn't have much of an effect. The sound almost appears random, as there isn't much of a theme and it's mixed so inconsistently. On top of that, it doesn't stand out except when it's not working. Overall, Miller's Girl is a failed attempt to recreate American Beauty. It's about a young woman trying to take control of her sexuality and taking it in the wrong direction. The film is kind of boring visually and sound-wise, and the leads have poor chemistry together. I wouldn't recommend this film. As for a rating, I'd give this a 4 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.